Yeah.
All right, guys. So we are doing the third interview from our players. This is Rose. You want to take
Hello.
a moment to introduce yourself and tell us who Rose is, and then we can get into the first big question.
Right. So Rose is a half-orc paladin sorcerer, played by me, obviously. She is a young woman, kind of. I don't know how best to describe her other than like just incredibly rich and complex. A bit of a herbo, definitely sweet.
Rich and complex
And
herbo.
yep, uh, it, it makes sense.
No, it does.
So she's incredibly fun to play though, because I have to play her in a way that makes her not as smart as I typically play other characters. So it's definitely a fun challenge on that one. So
Yeah, I think I do think that is hard for you, too, as well. Just because I mean, you're an intelligent person, and that comes through in a lot of situations where it's like, you know, I I think that you do a good job with it, but there are times where I notice you kind of have to like rein yourself in, and instead of like, you know, maybe knowing certain things, um, you kind of lean into the Rose role a little bit. But I mean, what's her wisdom?
her wisdom is, oh my god, I have to bring that up. That's not the thing I pulled up. She's fairly decent. She is in the. She's not negative in wisdom. I think she's a plus. Oh no, she's 11 in wisdom.
Okay, yeah.
So
So just in general, she's not the brightest berry on the bush, you know.
no,
But charisma, she definitely
she's great.
some charisma and social intelligence, at least outward acting. Um,
Mhm.
I enjoy her.
Yeah,
I think
she's.
she's definitely a you know you came in
Oh, mhm.
what 6 months after we started. I think it's hard for you
Oh
to say
god.
because you don't know when we started because you weren't there.
No,
um,
like it wasn't that long into it. Maybe more like 2 or 3 or 4 months. I know our record keeper knows this. He's somewhere in the audience, right?
I don't know. I don't think he's logged in yet. Oh, he's oh shit. I clicked on art gallery to post that. Everyone, yeah, thanks. He was there for that. If anything goes wrong, he's there. But yeah, so roughly, you came in at about 6 months into the game.
Hmm.
Um, you know,
Yeah,
so
definitely after session one by a significant bit.
yeah. But
So,
I mean, I feel like you kind of came in right at the right point though, because you came in during the games. You know, um,
mhm.
and having Rose around for that was kind of, you know, was helpful. She's good in combat.
Yeah,
She has a little bit of healing, which nobody had up to this point. Um, you know,
I mean, I do tend to try to build characters along utility more than a significant focus. Rose specifically was built to kind of be that quintessential paladin sort of personality. And while she has definitely evolved from there, she was definitely conceived as
this damn chair. Sorry.
that like really good of heart
Definitely,
sort of
definitely. I think out
like
of anybody in the group, you really
sweet.
brought that energy, that lawful good, just like
Mhm.
positive, influence, and not even just as not even just as the character, but as a player. in the group as well. You know, you really have like a good presence where, you know, I feel like more than the rest of them. Not to say that they don't have their strengths as well, you know, but I think more than the rest of the group, you bring a positive attitude, um, you know, and kind of not in a cheerleader sense at all, because I don't really get that vibe from you, but just as kind of like you know, that constant like source of like all right guys, let's you know let's move this forward in a positive way, you know, kind of all the time, and that comes through in character and out of character, and it's just kind of a you know it's a force of good in the campaign, on screen and off.
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate that a lot.
I mean, like, not to put too fine a point on it, there's no point in wallowing in negativity. I'd much rather be positive. Kind of a little bit of personal backstory here. Rose and I kind of share that sort of like undying spirit that half orcs tend to have. I've faced death before in my own personal life. Like, why not be positive?
Right. I
I've
mean,
seen the other side and I'm just like, it
yeah,
exists.
just kind of validate that a little bit and not to share too much information, but you're a cancer survivor, and that's pretty amazing. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, it's it, 1 week I was, you know, mostly healthy, if a little off my feet, and the next week I am recovering in the ICU from emergency surgery.
Yeah. Not fun.
No. But so that does kind of influence a little bit how I interact with things, and it comes through in Rose too. Like there's a lot of crossover between how I play Rose and
How
my
you
own
feel in life.
personal,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
my own personal philosophies.
I love that, and I think that really kind of influences in a lot of levels for people who play. Like my, you know, I talk about it all the time, but Felt is, you know, my character. He's not my DM PC in this campaign. I mean, Zamra is, but you know, he is my me, you know, character, so to speak, in my campaign that my best friend runs, and you know, it's really just so much easier to put yourself into a character that you base around a lot of your own personality traits, and it like makes the immersion that much more realistic and fulfilling. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. So, but yeah, like, I mean, we're getting into it, but you know, I got the big question that I've asked everyone so far. Um, you know, I think Zazie took the brunt of laying down the groundwork for everybody to work off of. You know,
Mhm.
Kovana was able to kind of stay in the lines a little bit and illuminate some of those things for him. But what do you know? Where did Rose start out? You know, where did she come from? What's her backstory?
Mhm.
You know, basics. And you know, as I said before, in as many words as you need, uh, where is she now, and you know what brought her to that point. You know, kind of focusing obviously on the main points that are important to Rose. Um, but yeah,
Mhm.
where do you feel you're at with that, and how did you get there?
Oh, her backstory is like her fun bit. So Rose kind of grew up in this little know nothing town called Cutter's Mouth out in the middle of nowhere in the Shadow Marches. And at a certain point, her mother was approached to send somebody to help the Fairhaven gatekeepers. She picked Rose because Rose, young, unmarried, nothing else going on for her in Cutter's Mouth. Why not send Rose to help out? And Rose would be able to, you know, go to school a little bit. She'd also be able to help out with the games and that fight team that we've put together. Um, and that's technically what was on the surface before she joined up. Um,
Yeah,
so
I mean,
she came in.
you know, I don't I hate to interrupt. Actually, I don't. I'm going to be honest. But I
You
really
know,
like the beginning of her story, and I feel like you know,
mm,
Grimvor, you know, being your link
mm,
there. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, you know,
being yeah being his assistant both in like the quote unquote school positional assistant where she ran his errands and things like that. Obviously, she wasn't going to do any teaching assisting for him
Yeah, no, I mean, what
unless you can.
she barely can even read or something like that, you know?
You know, she is not academically inclined, which is the bulk of how I play her. -1 intelligence. um, she's kind of averse to reading and everything, just because she grew up not with that knowledge. She was taught very different things than what most of the other kids her age were being taught. Uh,
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean,
so, like, she was more of a personal gopher for Grimvor, and provided extra power during their rounds, keeping up the gate,
right, yeah,
providing those
you were
wards.
almost like a battery, like a resource for the
Yeah,
preparation of those and the repair of those, the sigildry that is, was used to maintain in Fairhaven to keep
mhm,
the sleeper in shadow or that gate that was there in check. In
yeah,
which you thought was a Delkir, but it actually turned out that you know
yeah. That's not.
it's unclear what it actually was, but it clearly was a gate to another plane of existence with
Mhm,
some features. Oh, sorry about that.
yeah. What I do.
Um, hey,
So
listeners, I've turned up our volume a little bit. I turned up her volume. I'm going to move a little bit closer to my mic. Maybe that'll help. I was told that it's just a bit quiet. So yeah, but you went to the university. You ended up
mhm.
becoming part of the group, assimilating really well. I know that you made some friends in the group and whatnot. Uh, then you guys ended up having to go on a little
But
side mission. I don't know, little research out in Weir. Um,
yes, I mean, the Night of Long Shadows was also pretty intense for the group, and that's kind of their first hints of cohesion. Um, because they had
oh, my
that.
fault. You're right. That was before.
Yeah,
That was before that.
yeah. Yeah, Long Shadows came first. That was kind of the introduction to, well, shit's going to be getting weird here soon, gang. For all of them, really, when they had to go chase the mayor slash rescue the mayor through the Fairhaven sewer system called the Bricks,
Yeah. Yep.
uh,
And then the comet.
which, yeah, the comet that was being dealt with. Um, yeah, Rose didn't have anything to do with that one. That was more for Lucian and Kovanen
Right.
on
Right.
that particular section of that adventure. But what happens over Long Shadows is that we're getting our first taste of the overarching big bad of the arc, where he is going to try and sacrifice the party NPCs, and um, we are assisted at that point by a newcomer NPC named Grimlock. So that one gets pretty fun. Uh, that's also where one of my favorite moments for Rose comes into play, is because that's where the person doing the ritual that they end up having to thwart tries to sacrifice Rose by taking the, I'm not going to pronounce what it's actually named because that is a mouthful, but her woodcutter's axe, which is a nice magical axe that
Yeah. We'll
she
just call it Jaeger for
already
short.
intended to. Jaeger. I like that, but yeah, Jaeger was used against her after she had already attuned to it mechanically. She'd been using it for a while, and something about that, we haven't even seen the end of that story point yet, but something about that manifested her aberrant mark in a very just
Yeah,
threw up shields and
her
kind of knocked
mark.
things around.
We'll call it a mark. It wasn't necessarily an
Yeah.
aberrant one. Um,
Well,
but
at
yeah,
the time, that's what I based it on,
yeah,
mechanically.
right. Oh, absolutely. It is 100% mechanically an aberrant mark. But you know, as it begins to manifest, it's sharing a lot more similarities to a mark of Sybaris. You know, it's something we can get into later. But in general, it doesn't have a lot of the qualities that are specific to aberrant marks. It's more of a mark of binding, which doesn't actually exist. Where marks of aberrant marks are characterized by being destructive, and yours is actually more of a like a stabilizing force, or you know, yeah.
The two specific spells attached to that mark, as of this moment, are Blade Ward and her mage armor that she can throw on people
And
if
Moonbeam.
necessary, or even onto herself. No, Moonbeam is actually a specific spell to paladins, or not specific to paladins. But
Oh,
it's
I see what you're
something
saying.
that's in
I
the
was talking
paladin
about
spell list.
thematically. Thematically,
Oh, thematically, yeah, because her Moonbeam tends to be more along the lines of the colors of her own mark, which, like, against her skin is really pretty. It's nice and gold and glowy, and
yeah, kind of
occasionally
like
it gets
the
red.
like the rings of Sybaris, or the Sybaris
Mhm.
stones. Which is interesting
Yeah.
because the silver, it's not the golden flame, it's the silver flame, right? You know,
Hmm.
something that I thought was anyway. So you met
I mean,
Grimlock.
there is Grimlock on that little uh, Long Shadow adventure. There's a lot of sort of background social roleplay that we're gonna kind of gloss over here, but Rose kind of starts seeing Grimlock as a friend. She settles in for the next 3 months into just being low key just a student. But not that she could be classified as a student, but she tries. She honestly does. She hates history class, kind of situation. She likes athletics.
she's a member of the university. You know, she mostly just she's like an athlete. You know, she's a student athlete,
Yeah,
and she gets by
she's like,
on you know, on her martial prowess, because that's what the athletics are in this situation. But yeah.
yeah, she's definitely there on an athletic scholarship, and it shows.
Yeah.
Uh, so, and then we get into the energy conference where
Oh yeah.
role and all that is just she is with the party to check out this particular thing going on in a town called Weir.
Mm-hmm.
And the team that joins her is Grimlock, who we now know uh, we tend to call Lucky as his nickname. A couple of other people, I think Katara and Grimvor go with us. No, Grimvor stays behind. But I think Katara is there. Somebody's going to tell me whether or not I'm wrong. I don't need to look that up, but
I don't think
if
that's
I'm
as
wrong,
important,
they'll
but
tell
yeah,
me.
one of the two was there, and you know they're all sitting at the same table. I believe it was actually Lucky, Grimvor, and Gutera were all there, and I could be wrong about that, but I remember there was like the one
Yeah.
table where they're all kind of hanging out, and you know, you guys met the members of the expedition, which this isn't something that the other players have talked about at all. So I kind of like that you bring this up because
Yeah, because it's that dinner because that's where we meet one of the most significant background NPCs to Rose's personal story. That's where we meet Andre. Is at that dinner. That's the first time we see him over the narrative.
right, and Andre is your brother, one of your
Andre
like
is
12
Rose's.
siblings. And there's like a like
She only has
goblin warrens. Just like
she only has 5 living siblings.
it's like the
6 of yeah, 5.
fecundity of your family makes sense, you know. Just anyway,
Which is hilarious because her parents are single children and they had 7 of their own.
well, that's why,
2 of them
you
are
know,
twins.
it just makes sense.
Yeah. You know, she has Rose herself has a big family simply because her parents wanted a big family because they didn't have one growing up. That and her parents are madly in love with each other, and that started from like that first moment where they met each other, and has lasted for almost 40 years, 50 years at this point. Yeah, almost 50 years for her parents' marriage,
What?
quote unquote marriage.
Man, that's
Mm-hmm.
crazy. Okay.
40, no, 40 years. Yeah, 40 years. Sorry, I'm doing my math wrong. Adding 10 years to their age where they shouldn't be.
Yeah, I was
But
like,
no,
that
it's
doesn't
still.
sound. I thought they were like, I don't know, maybe they're in their 60s or something, and that was a stretch, but they
Yeah,
start dating when they were 10. It's just like Stand By
yeah,
Me, not Stand By Me, my Girl, without,
yeah,
you know, you know how that ended. Anyway,
yeah. No, not quite that long. They met when they were like 1920
yeah,
range for them. And then they have had a long and healthy relationship ever since,
yeah,
which also kind of leads into where Rose kind of leans into that family tradition. She is very family focused, um, but
and
that
I think
goes.
that kind of shows a little bit. You definitely leaned a little
Mhm.
bit into the Shadow Marches. A little bit of Eberron lore in the background there,
Yeah.
on what led into that. You scooped a little bit out, and we put a little bit of our own twist back in. But in
Hmm.
general, I feel like you really hit home on those points. But yeah, anyway, so we met Andre, and
And her brother.
yeah, and he was kind of a charismatic, but a little bit arrogant kind of guy. Um, yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, he's. I definitely like the way you took a couple of the things that I've mentioned, just like in building his character, and just ran with him. By the way, like because he is very much meant to be Rose's opposite in almost every way. Like they grew up as foils for each other.
right. It's funny because when we were going over him as a character, he kind of reminded me of Lucian a little bit. I'm not gonna lie. Now, obviously,
Mhm.
Lucian's background, he comes from a little bit more affluence, but which later you found, he did spend a little bit of time as a ranger, like living off the
Yeah,
land and being a little bit grittier. Um, but then
it's probably the thing
also,
that surprises Rose the most.
yeah, but then you find out also that well, not you find out the one that you met, he has this kind of guarded's not the right word, but this kind of more like a polished image that he shows to most people, and that's kind of how Andre
Mhm.
is. And
Oh yeah.
I really enjoyed that. Um, playing that character. He was definitely a lot of fun, and he just constantly is just kind of trolling everybody just a little bit.
Hmm. Trolling is putting it mildly, as we figure out like half a no, a couple of weeks later between the conference dinner and actually going to Weir. There is a lot of shit that happens in Weir for the entire party, but Rose's personal shit is she learns a lot about who Andre was, because at a certain point in her childhood, he left Cutter's Mouth, left her behind, despite the fact that they'd been close up until a certain point. Um, and they just kind of had drifted apart in the intervening years. Um, Low to almost no contact between them until he shows up at the energy conference and accompanies them to Weir. Uh,
Yeah, where
and
where he had kind of almost been like living. He was
yeah,
running a crew there.
running a crew, had at least before she found somebody else, had been dating a woman named Mwedu, or living with her
Right.
in some capacity.
No, honestly, I can't remember. Did he have the mark of finding, or was he just running a group of guys that had it? I'm trying to remember, and I don't remember that being a
He
big.
had he did have a mark. I know you mentioned that. I don't know if you mentioned if it was specifically a mark of finding or if he had another aberrant mark himself. I don't
Hmm.
think we ever discussed that.
That would be interesting because it would make sense that you had one also. Obviously, your father's side, or well, or your mother's side. We don't really know because it's humans and
Mhm.
orcs and half orcs that pass that down, but it's in your lineage. But
Yeah.
Eberron Fluff is that maybe one of your you know in this situation it'd have to be your mom. Maybe it was House Vidalis or something like that. What on the other
Mhm.
side, and when those marks mix, that's where aberrant marks come from. Is when you merge two marks.
Yeah, two Hassels.
Yeah, that creates an
Yeah.
aberrant mark. So
Yeah, I mean, I know we've discussed a few things that would be more character spoilers than anything, but
we
you
did
kind of know
we
where.
got confirmation from the chronicler, one that it was definitely multiple orders of magnitude above where you guys came from, because Lucian's essentially a sultan or the son, a prince of a sultan. And then he said Andre had the finding mark, so that makes
Yeah,
sense.
which I think out of all of her family, we know her father has one. Um, that's been established, and most of her brothers, including Andre. Like, I don't know if the twins do. We haven't discussed that one yet. Um,
Thank God. I would never be able to remember all this.
that's why I keep notes. I actually, for
Yeah.
those of you listening at home,
Jesus.
I have a full document of all
Hmm.
of Rose's known family members
Not even
because she
extended
has,
family, just
which doesn't have much of an extended family. It literally like she knew her maternal grandfather, and that is the only record of like in generation past her mother and father because her father was an orphan.
right.
Her mother was raised by a single father, essentially. She knew her mother knew her own mother, but very briefly, sort of scenario, which is where they come from.
Yeah.
Which is another reason why they have big families because, like, weird
So
baggage there. But
I'm going to steal this back real quick, but back to the energy conference.
yes, back to the
um,
energy conference.
so he
Sorry.
was at the energy conference, and he was there with the group of people. And this is kind of a big thing.
Mhm,
So in Masks of Nyarlathotep, uh,
mhm,
there is this expedition. It's called the Carlisle Expedition. And in
mhm.
our case, it was also the Carlisle Expedition. Now, I've modified a ton of things, and it's quite different from Mask of Nyarlathotep, but the keynotes kind of stay the same. And you guys met all of the key players that were in that expedition. And, I did that kind of in advance, knowing that I was going to run that campaign at the following year for year two, starting it. And so I introduced you to all the people that were going to be on the expedition, and then kind of, Lucky followed the expedition, and Lucky represents one
Yep.
of the characters um, that's in the book.
Yeah.
Um, and I actually
He didn't.
split. Go ahead.
He didn't quite follow the expedition at first. He went with our team because the expedition split at that after the dinner.
Right.
One team went to Weir, and then the other team followed somebody else who was important to somebody else's story elsewhere. We don't know where.
Right. Right.
So
But he ended up kind of like trailing them and like, taking notes on what they were doing and so on. And, I kind of split that character in two between him and Grimvor. Um,
mm.
anyway, energy conference happened, and what followed that? What came right after the energy conference? I can't even remember.
We went to Weir.
That's right.
The energy conference was the dinner in Fairhaven where we got the expedition assignment, where the party got sent to Weir with Lucky and a couple of other NPCs, Andre included. They were checking up on something. I
Yeah.
don't even remember what we were specifically looking for in regards to the energy conference, maybe just like another new field of shards or something.
Yeah.
And
That was actually one. That was the first site that they had been investigating. Um, which
didn't
kind of,
find shards, but found a whole lot else.
yeah. I mean, well, it coincided also with the meteor strike. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then you guys got there, and Andre just disappears. And you know, anyway, by the end of
Disappears, reappears.
by the end of that act, you know, you guys were rescuing
Yep.
Lucky and one of your fellow students from
Yeah.
your brother, who turned
Carry it
out to
out.
be the leader of the Black Root cult, which is very similar to
Yep.
the you know, the cult of the bloody tongue, or whatever it is that we called it. Um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
the
Or the blood drinkers or something like that. I can't remember
the
what you
night
call it.
the night drinkers. Yeah, that was, you know,
Yeah.
that was one. That was the gang that was involved with them. Anyway, so you guys
Yeah.
made it out of
So
there. Lucky lived, and Lucian ended up having to kill your brother. And you know, I
yeah,
feel like you handled
that
that pretty
that wouldn't
well.
bite us in the ass later.
Yeah,
It was rough for Rose.
yeah,
Not gonna lie.
yeah.
Um. So we deal with Weir. Rose is now a little bit more subdued. She's a little, I wouldn't say she's unsure of herself, but now she's starting to question things a little bit more about what she'd been taught
Yeah, she starts just like
as.
walking around like a jaded cop, you know. Like
She's not quite that jaded yet. She's just
I'm
like,
kidding.
okay, hold on. Weird shit's going on. Let me think about this for a couple of minutes because it's going to take me longer than a second, kind of thing. And while that's going on, while she's trying to process her grief, there is the second uh, event of the games where they just kind of kick all sorts of ass. That was a fun little combat session, nice little break for her. Not going to go into that one too much, but uh, on not Andre, goddamn, Lucian kicks some major ass, which is one of, as a player, my favorite moments because that was just cinematic as fuck.
Wait, which
Pardon my
part is
language.
this?
Where they're in the games where the first time Lucian pulls out a gun that he was given at the end of the Weir arc.
Oh yeah,
He was
the gun
given a
that
gun
Lucky
by
gave him.
Lucky. Mm-hmm. And the first time he pulls it out is to shoot a Warforged in the face, non lethally, quote unquote, but I don't think we cared at that point as players if this
Right,
fucker died.
right.
Dude was an ass. He deserved it. Uh, and Lucky, or not Lucky, god damn, Lucian rolls that natural one. Natural 20. I need more caffeine,
Yeah,
apparently.
get some caffeine. Here, let's actually take a break real quick. I just gotta let's do a quick bio. We'll do it like five
Okay.
minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
Um.
Gives me a chance to, recombobulate,
Yeah,
apparently.
yeah. I mean, there's we just covered a ton of stuff, but
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
we'll follow up in a second. Um. Yeah.
All right.
I need to use the restroom anyway. Be right back.
Yeah. Go for it. I'm just going to sit here. And if anybody has any questions from the audience, I will answer those as I can. I don't know if Rose has a favorite flavor of chapstick to answer a certain someone in the audience. uh, but Rose's favorite flower, apart from her namesake, um, and here's a tiny bit of trivia: Rose is her nickname that everybody forgets isn't her real name. Her second favorite flower is probably sunflower or things like that. Maybe the lupines too. She's a very sweet girl. And yes, lupines, because I don't think bluebonnets specifically exist in Eberron. But I'm pretty sure lupines do.
All right, what doesn't exist in Eberron?
Bluebonnets, which is a specific subtype of the lupine flower. Subspecies, essentially. Native to Texas, which is where I, as a player, am from.
Why wouldn't it exist there?
I don't know. Texas doesn't exist in Eberron. Unless you count the... Maybe the Marches do count as Texas? I don't know. Maybe they do live and they have bluebonnets in Eberron. That would be one of Rose's favorite flowers, aside from, her namesake. Welcome back, by the way.
Say like the comments are going crazy.
Well, I did
Okay.
ask them to ask me questions while you were gone.
Okay. I'm back.
Welcome back.
Thanks. Okay. So we wrap up Weir. You're
Mhm.
dealing with trauma. You guys are doing the games. And then
And then we get called to assist Lady Relgare with something in Dreamlands. Um, they all go to the Dreamlands. They learn some information that is relevant to Kovanen's storyline. Rose doesn't have much of a part to play in all of that, aside from being another capable fighter uh, and extra body, and that's not bad. Just that's she was kind of just there for the ride and to learn a few things and to support the rest of the party as they learned things. Uh, we have a fight in the Dreamlands, and we kind of make a hasty escape where we learn that because we escaped prematurely, things are going to get a little weird. Um, and uh, just generally, some of us need to go back. So
yeah.
Kovanen obviously goes back to the Dreamlands, and we take Rose with him. And then two of the secondary characters that kind of contribute here and there to the party as NPCs slash secondary player characters, Marin and Sprocket go with them back to the Dreamlands. Uh, things are happening back at home, and while those are happening with Zazie and Lucian, Rose and Kovanen with Sprocket and Marin
The comments.
go to
Sorry, the rose body pillow. We're working on the rose body pillow, guys. Okay, we're trying to get through this right now. Okay, I know you guys all want the rose body pillow. I want it too, but we're gonna have to wait until some of our sponsors are, maybe we start a Patreon, or Kickstarter, and that'll be the reward. Rose body pillow. $100,000. When we hit that, rose,
Yeah, it'd
everybody,
be a nice little.
yeah,
One of
tier
the stretch
two
goals
and,
would be
and up, get a rose body pillow. Life size. It's like
uh,
6'4". It weighs
yeah,
250
Rose is six
pounds.
foot four. She's a svelte woman. Like she's got body fat. It exists, but not much of it. She
Yeah,
is
but
strong.
she's like fucking Reacher. You ever watch that show?
Yes, she's very much a female Jack Reacher,
Yeah.
and I love that comparison. Actually, I'm gonna have to
Oh
go back and start
man,
watching that
no one
again.
would be able to move
Because I
that
didn't
pillow
know that
around. Ooh,
I mean, a couple of people might. But
yeah. I mean, I could. That's how I got my first hernia.
I, oh man.
my,
Yeah.
my,
So,
my Rose real doll.
oh no.
Real girl? I don't know what it's called. Something like that. Anyway,
Sorry.
yeah, so you guys came back. You guys ended up going back to try to set things straight in the Dreamlands. Long story short, you were there
Yeah.
and captured the egg.
Captured the egg. Yeah, we specifically went back because one of the major objectives that we hadn't known about at the time was to rescue an egg. At the time, we didn't know what it was. Um, it was a desperate flight. The party survived intact, but a few of the NPCs that we had been traveling with over the course of, in our sense of time, a couple of weeks at that point,
Yeah.
didn't quite make it. And it was a very messy way they didn't make it. But once we got the egg into our possession, we were then entrusted for the next month of time to get it from wherever we had been in Dreamlands.
I think it was Hethig
over the course of
Claw. Hethig
Hethig Claw,
Claw?
yeah.
Yeah, I could be wrong. But yeah, you guys passed through a desert and a forest and the Zug Forest. I mean, this is the H.P. Lovecraft Dreamlands, somehow
Yeah.
manifested into the world of Eberron. You guys made your way there.
It worked.
You got this
So
egg.
it took us about a month to get from Hethik Claw to the city whose name also escapes me because I don't think I could ever remember that city, even when it was actually relevant to Rose's story. But we get the egg and we more or less wake up from the Dreamlands.
Did you guys go back to the same city? Was it the same one?
I think it was, but I could be very, very wrong. I thought it was because that's what my memory is telling me, but
Yeah, I thought it was.
it could have
too.
been just another. It could have been another city.
Yeah, it's
So
the name that's coming to mind is Ultram, Ulthar. Ulthar, there it is.
Ulthar.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ulfar or Ulthar. Can't remember if it's a TH or enough, but
Yeah, TH Ulthar. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. But yeah, Ulthar, the city of cats.
yeah, and we get there and we get sent back to the waking world, for lack of better words, with this egg, which the Lady Ragari tells us that, yeah, just keep it safe. You'll learn more about it in time. Uh, but we also learn upon waking up that our comrades are off investigating something and just take some time to take a short rest, essentially, even though it technically was a long rest.
Yeah, and
But
they
not.
didn't they actually brought the egg back because they went to the Dreamlands like in the flesh. They actually, they weren't sleeping and went to the Dreamlands. They actually, horizon
Yeah, we
walked.
were actually there.
there, and then they met you guys at the port in
Yes.
in Fairhaven. And Fairhaven is right on the other side, of that, realm of existence in the Dreamlands from
Yeah.
Ulthar. So,
Ulfar. Yeah.
yeah. So that is where you guys went. Um,
Yeah, that's right, because
and they gave you the
yeah,
egg,
the
and then Rose has been obsessed with
Renford.
this egg.
She wasn't obsessed. Rose
Obsessed.
has just a very strong maternal instinct.
Obsessed. Like,
It wasn't obsession.
yeah. Obsessed in the most healthy way possible. Um, what's the word for that?
You would trusted. I don't know. It's not Sundari.
We'll come back to that.
uh, but so, but that happens. So then we learn that at some point during our time away, for us had been a month, had just been like 5-6 hours in the waking world, because time moves differently in dreams.
Yeah.
Zazie and Lucian had gone investigating with Yulia and Eli. Yulia got herself into trouble trying to catch this shard. Eli and Zazie did not. Lucian had gotten himself into a lot of trouble, and that's his story to tell. Rose is going to stay out of that one. But essentially, shit went down, and the sleeper awoke into this big amorphous blob of an eldritch monster that
and you guys beat it.
Had to
and you guys beat it.
We beat it.
And then Rose, with the help of Grimvor, sealed it back off. And I don't mean to throttle this forward, but basically from that point on, you and Zazie worked together, not necessarily like in tandem, but the two of you worked to restore balance in the city, while all the other stuff went down with the other characters. You guys were kind of like, she learned a little bit about how to do what you do, and you learned a lot more about doing what you're supposed to be doing. I think that's where you learned Elder Sign, and you guys used I can't remember the word. It's basically a platform covered in sigiltry. It has such a cool word, and I can't think of what it's called. But anyway, recreated that, and then put that stone where it belongs. Where is that stone right now? I've asked everybody. Nobody knows where. Nobody knows where it is.
It is in. At the last time Rose saw it, it was in Captain Block's possession because they were going to put it into the Silver Flame vaults.
Okay.
Somewhere, and I'm still hoping that's a good idea. But Rose trusts Captain Block, and she's not sure what to make of the Inquisitor. Two of the other more important NPCs to Rose's personal story, members of the Silver Flame and fellow paladins. This is also where that 9-month gap is also where Rose learns more about what other paladins do, because her foray into being a paladin didn't involve the Silver Flame as a function of that organization.
Right.
She has a more primal connection, more almost instinctual connection to the Silver Flame.
Almost druidic. More
almost
of a,
druidic.
Yeah, I mean, it is actually a druidic sect. Obviously you rolled a paladin. But I think if we were to like categorize you, if we weren't playing D&D, Rose would be a druid.
Yeah, Rose is very much
so
more of the metaphysical druid rather than a function of mechanics.
Right.
Because that's how she was trained. It's just in the way it manifests mechanically. It's a paladin for her. And so over the course of that 9-month period between putting down the sleeper and Lucian and Zamra getting married, Rose and Zazie have that 9-month period where they kind of trade off watching this egg that they still know almost nothing about. They also wish Lucian and Zamra well as they go off on their honeymoon. Kovanen goes back to the Dreamlands, or someplace,
He dies.
but
He dies in an
he
airship
dies.
accident.
Yeah, that's what Rose and Zazie knew
It's like published in the
during that
newspapers and everything.
quiet time. Yeah, and that's the first time Rose actually gets like super fucking drunk because she is pissed at him because he's supposed to come back, and like she doesn't know what to do for Zazie at that point because she knows Zazie and Kavana were close. Not how close they were, but like out of all of them, Zazie and Kavana were there for each other for a lot of it. And so Rose deals with that. She deals with the more practical aspects of running the Relgari estate and the manse.
Right. That's true. Yeah,
Zazie,
the two of you were in
yeah,
charge of running the months. Yeah.
yeah, we're technically the not Seneschal. Uh, there's a word for it that I can't remember, but they were running the manse because the rest of the students that had been in the local dorms were now living at the manse because kind of flashback moment. I don't know if Kovanen or Sazi talked about this, but there was a moment where a different charge showed up and they swiftly put that down because Kovanen did the absolute batshit insane thing of taking the shard off on his own.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Away from
he
the
covered
rowdies.
that. He covered that thoroughly in detail. Yeah, if anybody
Yeah,
wants to hear that one, him and I
go back
kind
to
of
that interview.
talked about that pretty deeply.
Craziest moment of the
Yeah, that was
hands down
the
one of the craziest
that was
moments
the
of the
most
campaign.
reckless thing that anyone has done, other than when Lucian took that shard and combined it to make that happen to begin with,
Oh
which
god, yeah.
was reckless in a different way. But yeah, so but
So
the party's reunited after some other stuff
party
happens.
is reunited
Yeah, and we kind of cover
after
that.
9 months.
Yeah, and
Uh, it gets fun. We learned that the new Kovanen is um, a baby, for lack of a
we
better
did,
word.
and we did cover that in the Kovanen section. The whole,
Yeah,
um, he had a kid and all that.
yeah.
What's the next big
The
plot point after that?
the next plot point after that,
You
after
went
the
to Sharn.
reunion, we went to Sharn, where Rose, over the course of 9 months, has just been kind of low key worried about Lucky. She's been doing her own thing. He's been doing his. She escorts Felt solo because, spoiler alert, Rose is deathly afraid of flying. Not quite
Oh,
rolling fear
that's right.
checks,
You took the freaking
but
train there.
yeah, because she escorted Felt by a train because Felt needed to be there earlier than the ship would get us there. Um, because the ship hadn't quite been ready, so we
Right, the
just
ship wasn't ready to
took the train.
leave, and I mean, the train was slower, but it still got you there like 2 days earlier or something like that.
Yeah.
Um,
So
and it was good
Rose
that you
had a
escorted
nice
him
little.
because
Yeah.
the train got attacked. You guys had like a whole,
Did
like there was like bandits attacked the train, and you guys fought them off, and um, yeah,
I don't remember that happening, but I mean, pretty sure at this point in time, Rose is just gonna look at a bandit and go like, "Really?"
it was like a hand
Be
waved
like, okay,
sequence,
yeah.
um,
Oh yeah, that's right. Because it would have been a very short fight
right,
once
right.
they got to Rose
So,
at that point in her journey.
but you guys got there.
So we got to Sharon. Rose spends a couple of days not in her own hotel room. I'm going to keep this as PG-13 as I can with that.
I mean, and we kept it
But
pretty
she,
PG-13 too.
oh yeah,
Everything is
yeah,
always behind the
I did that.
sidelines and innuendos and kind of
The amount of
pointing.
fan fiction that I have
Well,
written down.
yeah. We'll when we get the Patreon going, we'll publish that, and anybody who wants to know what happened behind closed doors, can pay some money to the Rose pot, the Rose
Rose pot.
pot. Anyway,
That works, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so yeah, there was definitely a romantic connection that happened with Lucky, and you know, the party is there,
The,
and
the party arrives to find her in Lucky's room,
yes,
just for
yes,
giggles. Um, and then that night is one of the most significant moments in Rose's story. They are told to meet Lucky and Grimvor back at the library in the university in Sharn, which is, I cannot remember the name of the
Moorgrave
university.
University.
The Morgrave University library at a certain point. Um, and when they get there to the library is being barricaded off because of something going on. Rose kind of encounters a misogynistic cop that turns out wasn't actually a cop, just someone masquerading as one. Spoiler alert for that one. He's a changeling, I think. But
Yeah,
in that encounter,
he was changeling for sure. Yep.
yeah, um, in that encounter, they can't get past the cop. They can't convince them to let them through. But they find a cab driver who does get them through a side route. Too slow to save Grimvor, but just in time to see Grimluck standing over him with the bloody knife in his hands. And that just kind of breaks Rose in a very fun way to play, because she just spent a couple of days hanging out with this guy,
So
and now he's
this
apparently
was
killed his uncle.
this is the only case where you guys how do I say it? Where you guys really were like detectives. You know, you guys discovered evidence and basically, you know, you guys like exonerated Lucky. You know, you found the other guy, you hunted him down, you turned the information in, and that's right. That's uh, anyway. Yeah, you guys did a really
So, yeah.
good job with that, and that wasn't something that you guys really had done much to that date.
Yeah, and I mean, we get to see a very angry Rose at that point. She is very annoyed because at the time of discovering Grimvor being murdered in the library, she didn't know what to think of Lucky being the one over him with a knife, because he had just been exonerated from another murder accusation halfway across the world in the Marches. In fact, he had just gotten to Sharn from that release,
Yeah.
essentially.
Hmm.
And so she doesn't know what to make of that situation until they go back to the hotel room. And Rose makes, I think she rolled a natural 20 for either an insider investigation check on somebody who'd been quote unquote collecting evidence from Lucky's hotel room. And she just
Oh
takes
yeah,
after this
yeah.
asshole.
Like, there was a guy there. You know,
Mm-hmm.
basically he went inside. You guys figured it out though. It was so funny because at first it was you and Zazie were there, and
Yeah, it was me and Zazie, because we had also been like, let's go see what's in Lucky's hotel room, see if we can figure out why the fuck he would have done this thing. Rose is pissed. Um, and now she's even madder because, oh, you're not actually a cop.
but and there's a cop already
A mental.
there, and you guys are like, what are you doing here? And you know, he basically convinces you, and then he's leaving, and as he's walking down the hall, and this might not be verbatim exactly what happened, but Rose has like a second thought, and like looks at him, and is like, and then has the realization, you know, oh, this guy's fucking taking stuff. He took X, Y, and Z. Why the fuck is he taking that? And then he just starts fucking running. And you guys chase him down the stairwell. He like just basically just jumps from, you know, the 13th floor or whatever it is, you know, all the way to the base. Lucian and Kovanen are there. Lucian's shooting him. Kovanen's like trying to attack him, and he goes out in the street. And I think you guys knock him unconscious.
We don't knock him unconscious, but we get him to drop whatever he'd taken from Licky's hotel room.
Yes.
Um, we
And it's the
surround him.
Grimvor
We've got
papers.
him.
It's literally the
Yeah, the
papers that.
Grimvor papers.
Yeah. Yeah.
We get him cornered, and we think we're about to, collar this guy when he turns into a big fucking pile of smoke and goes down the fucking drain, literally. And Rose is just like, can't quite catch him, even with her little bag of trick companion.
Zazie marks him.
But she needs. Yeah, Zazie does mark him, which is a good thing. I think he's still technically marked, maybe.
We don't know. We don't.
I mean,
yeah, we don't know. We haven't really went over that, but it seems like it. So,
Yeah.
Lucky goes to jail. Felt shows back up again. You guys have to exonerate Lucky.
Yeah. And we managed to do so through a lot of, hard work. And during this time, we also learn more about an NPC named Cyrus McQuain, who we end up confronting at the end of our time in Sharn. Rose is initially just deathly afraid of this guy because he is. She does her little paladin trick of, detect good and evil sort of thing, and he just wrecks her. When she turns it on to actually focus on it. So they scramble out of there during their first encounter with him because it's Rose, Lucian, and Kovanen. Or is it just Rose and Lucian? But it's Zazie's not there for reasons.
Yeah. I think it was just Rose and Lucian. But anyway, Cyrus McQuaid, there's something really strange about this guy. You guys went into his curio shop that was in Lulu's house, which was essentially like a big bar with a mall around it, in the lowest district, and then you guys left and went back and told everybody what the hell happened.
Yeah. That first encounter, which we kind of go we're probably gonna have to deal with him at some point, but that can hold off because Lucian learns that his cousin Erica is in town and we go to see her. Reading the chat. And then Lucian reconnects with Erica. Rose has nothing to do with that. She's just there to kind of be a bodyguard. They get back to their hotel room. They deal with other things. And then we learn that people have been kidnapped that are important to us. And so the party goes to confront Cyrus McQuain. That goes down super well. We win. But we are forced to flee through a portal that is rapidly catching fire and sending smoke into wherever we ended up. We end up marching through this underground thing that we do eventually identify as Kyber. This is super happy about that because she's grown up kind of mistrusting anything dealing with Kyber. And then we end up at the other end of our march in the Marches.
Yeah, 2 days later, and you guys traveled, 3,000 miles, 1,500 miles? I can't even remember. Some significant distance on foot,
A journey that took Rose 3 weeks to make via cart and, her own 2 feet. It took 2 days. And Rose is baffled because that shouldn't have happened.
There we go. I'm checking it out right now. It was 1,000 miles. It was almost exactly 1,000 miles, actually.
Yeah.
900. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Not liking the implications of that, but she has other things to deal with, including the fact that most of her party is actually they weren't prepared to take that march, essentially. So she flags down the first boatman that they encounter a man named Gaff, who gets them to Deepwood City. Deepwood City uh, is cloaked in this kind of anti-scrying, anti-communication magic hall. Rose doesn't know how to explain it better than that. Um, and the events of Deepwood City reveal that there is a mine to the north of the city that's fairly active. Um, and there is something in the mine. There's a secret lab in the mine that just kind of rattles Rose a little bit to her core, because that thing shouldn't have existed at all. So Rose is now also starting to question a few things. And when they return from that little side quest that turned out to actually be kind of plot relevant to Deepwood City, they've also discovered that, oh yeah, by the way, you're wanted. Because Zamra picks them up from Deepwood City, having finally arrived in the marches from Sharn. So they have to figure out where they're going from there. They decide the next best place to go is, now they go to Zarashak, which is the capital city of the Shadow Marches, where Rose has spent some time previously. She doesn't know it like the back of her hand, but she's more familiar with it than the rest of the party, where they sort of try to figure out what's going on, why they're wanted. And on the way to Zarashak, the egg that had been kept pretty well protected in all of the shenanigans going on, hatches. And it's a fun, hilarious moment, because it starts cracking at the end of one session. We leave it on that cliffhanger, only for it to kind of, quote unquote, blow up in Rose's face the moment the next session begins. Which is absolutely hilarious and kind of fitting. And we finally learn what had been in the egg. It's a little dragon?
Unclear. It's like a dragon
Unclear.
or a coatl or a hybrid. You don't know.
Maybe hybrid. It's something. And Rose kind of goes, oh, shit. Rose knows that this is a celestial of some sort. It kind of starts flying away. The airship catches up to this child, which then kind of lands back on deck in Zazi's arms, now shaped like a relatively human child with white hair. And was it a set of 2 or a set of 3 pairs of dragon marks where her wings would have been? I can't remember.
Right? It's 4. It's 4 because she has 4 wings.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's like I said, 2. Yeah, pair of
2 sets.
But
yep.
yeah, 2 sets of what looked like dragon marks where her wings would have sprouted from a body. And so Rose is just like, well, shit, now we have a child to take care of. And you thought Rose was, quote unquote, obsessed. She wasn't obsessed. Now you've got Rose in full-blown mother mode. And we figure out, okay, let's just get this child taken care of. We'll figure out the rest as we go along. Zazie and Rose and the rest of the crew bond with the child we have now named Aurora.
Zazie and Rose have this almost like father-mother like rivalry going on a little bit. This is just me from the outside.
It's not even a rivalry.
It kind of is. It kind of is because
they're
like
co-parents.
Oh, I'll do it. No, I'll do it. You know, like you guys both want to be the one that like is responsible for the thing. You know, and
Rose is content to let Zazie take whatever leads she wants to take, because Rose is the daughter of a midwife. Rose knows what she's doing. Essentially, she's helped raise her nieces and nephews up until the point that she left Cutter's Mouth. So she's got that background to rely on.
How many celestial dragon babies has Rose raised?
absolutely zero until this one.
Yeah, yeah, it's a little different, I think.
It is a
Um,
little different.
yeah,
She does still like it, whatever this child is. She still needs to be fed and bathed and protected.
yeah, of course.
So now we have like you've seen her father coming out in Rose a lot because her father is very much like her, doesn't tend to think first before doing certain things. Not quite as bad as certain other characters, but like his solution is always the more if I can smack it, I'm happy sort of solution.
Yeah,
But now we get to see Rose kind of emulating her mother more. And her mother's where she learned most of her magic. Her mother is a midwife and priestess of a goddess called Baldra, who has some parallels to the sovereign Baldre. Um, and so we can see a little bit of that play out while they're trying to figure out what's going on to have gotten them so significantly wanted, but alive, not dead. Um, and that's where we kind of see a little bit more of a couple of these secondary NPCs in action. You see Yulia, who is another one of my characters, in play a little bit more there. Um, and things start happening. Um, there is a budding incursion from another plane where Rose meets one of Lucian's NPCs for the first time, a Gith named Iphany. She teaches her a couple of things. They have to quickly patch up a hole in time and space above Zarashak while the rest of the
yeah,
party
yeah.
is.
It's a wild zone is what it's called. There's
Yeah.
a wild zone manifests when the
Uh,
baby's born, and it turns out to be, the what is it? Not the crawling chaos. That's what Nyarlathotep is called. The churning chaos.
yes, yeah.
Kind of, which is not necessarily a wild zone that is in that space, but it's not necessarily not either. So it's not unclear why that was the plane that was there, but it becomes a little bit more clear
Yeah.
later on. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry.
Yeah. There is a question in chat from Ninja Hell Productions. Ninja Hell asks if that is the beast in the art on screen, which the answer is going to be up to the DM to answer.
They don't know yet. So this has been the art since year one. And basically at the end of year two, they encounter this beast. Um, it very much looks like an adult version of the dragon that they found. That is a very accurate depiction of the coatl dragon hybrid, with the four wings and maybe not the headdress and the armor plating. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really good observation. Ninja Hell Productions. Yeah, you definitely hit the nail on the head there. That is a little bit of foreshadowing. We think. We don't know for sure yet.
We could be wrong.
And there's also, you can see in the background, there's also two comets that are falling in the background of that picture as well. So there's some significance.
2 or 3.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
2.
Okay.
Some
But-
significance there as well.
So, yeah, that happens. We learn a lot in.
Oh, is that 3? Is there 3?
Zarashak.
Anyway, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, you learn that in
we learn a lot in
Zarashak.
Zarashak. There's probably a lot more in Zarashak that we learn. Mostly it's Zazie and Kovanen that learn the most. But we learn that a couple of NPCs have been taken into custody and have since been released on other things because shortly after arriving in Zarashak, after a couple of days, Felt has yet again saved our ass and received some information that essentially releases us from whatever we've been wanted.
Both him and Lucky worked together to make that
Yeah,
happen. Um,
they did. A couple of other NPCs contributed to which ends I don't know what. Even as a player, I'm kind of curious what the information was.
yeah, some of that was definitely left behind the curtain, and it's one of those things
Yeah,
where, like, if you guys decided to dig into it, you would have probably been able to get some more information. But that moment has probably passed, or mostly passed at this point. I mean, Felt is around occasionally. But I think
yeah,
we could expedite that, and to say that that tear in reality apparently was there was the veil was already thin there because the night drinkers and
yeah,
the cult in residence in Zarashak were working on summoning this entity that happened to be another overlord. And obviously we mentioned in Kovanen's spot that Kovanen and Zazie went to go talk to this group, the Cabinet of Faces, and
yep,
the mentors. They're a group of benevolent. I don't know if that's the right word. They're working for the greater good of Eberron, and they kind of tell him like, "Hey, this is going on. Oh shit, your guy Veer is basically sparking up all these prophecies, setting them in action, and then kind of like walking away. And you guys are just showing
yeah,
up and kind of canceling them out. And by the way, that's about to happen again right now. Um, you
yep,
know, and this force of chaos, the Unmaker, begins to manifest, and it really doesn't. We haven't really seen why it chose Lucian's cousin. Um, Other than she's a Sulatar, and it was very like fire based and destruction based, and and she
yeah.
was a rageaholic. So here we have
She
this,
was barbarian.
yeah,
You'd say it.
we have this entity that that
That has
feeds on destruction and
kidnapped her
rage,
body
and it took
for
her over.
their own nefarious purpose.
Yeah,
Hmm. And
and
so
yeah,
we go off to deal with that. Uh, and in trying to get this entity dealt with, Rose learns that she can now do a new thing, which is very much not the win she'd anybody would have hoped it was, because in so doing, this new thing she can do, which is she can now bind those entities into kyber shards. She also binds Erica, or Erica was already dead, or something. But either way, she is now responsible for Erica's death, or so she believes. She pretty much is sure she is responsible for it. And so, coming into this next year, that is something that she and Lucian, they've been addressing it kind of behind the scenes a little bit, but it's something that's very much going to be an address of conversation between. And that's essentially where we're at now. Like, they go to Lucian's hometown to deal with the funeral, and we're gonna have to see what happens next, because that's next year's campaign.
yeah. Cool. I think that wraps it up pretty nice and neat. We got a couple other questions here. Um, Let me go ahead and get back into there. Okay. Let's see. All right. So, I think we touched on this a little bit already. But what is the most memorable moment? Just the one most memorable moment in the campaign for you for Rose? What is like
Um,
the moment that when it happened, it meant the most to you as a player?
I think it's hard to narrow it down to a single one because she does have a lot of good moments behind her. I think my absolute favorite moment as a player is one of her more darker moments where she's confronted this reality that, hey, Lucky is dropped the bloody knife and backed away from Grimvor by a couple of steps and is now starting to take off to go what he claims at the time is chasing after the person who actually did this. Rose is not sure what to make of it and tells him to stop before either her friends who are taking after Lucky now could hurt Lucky, or Lucky can hurt them in his haste to get away. And she rolls a natural 20 on her persuasion.
Yeah, and he just
without even
stops.
needing the advantage.
He just stops.
It is such a beautifully heartbreaking scene because she doesn't know what to say after that. She tells him to stop kind of because it's an automatic thing. She really likes Lucky. She had just spent 2 nights in his bed. And now this. And she is now at a loss for words because he listened.
Yeah.
She doesn't know how to handle that.
Well, what do you say now?
So for her, it's a very emotional moment of, what the hell do I do with all of this baggage that just landed in my lap? And that's where we kind of first see her cracking. And it's been amazing to kind of build up that sort of mental trauma that she is.
It's interesting too because, Lucian, lost his cousin. Kovanen is maybe not real. Zazie has had a really horrible abusive childhood. But since the campaign has started, Rose, who probably had, one of the best childhoods,
relationship,
has had the fucking worst go of it. Your brother dies, and then your mentor
tries to kill her
dies
twice first.
Yeah, man.
At least Grimvor didn't try to kill her on purpose.
Right.
He just set up situations that were very dangerous. So it's a lot of Rose's trauma has happened on screen, and it's been wonderful to watch because her working through it is such a compelling part of her story to me.
Yeah. And then of course, Lucky's other uncle, if you want to call him that.
Grumnash. Who is another druid in the Gatekeeper Order. Might be going insane, and Rose has to figure out how to deal with that.
Right.
But that's for later Rose to deal with.
Yeah, which I'm pretty sure that Lucky, is which one is he actually the nephew of? Is he actually the nephew of Grimvor or Grommash? Because they're essentially married or whatever. They're
they were partners.
Yeah, they were partners. So. I was just not clear which one is his uncle for real. I don't think we ever decided that.
I don't think we decided that. Like, in my head, it's Grimvor, just because the name connection and the fact that Lucky was working primarily with Grimvor in Fairhaven, but it could be Grommash is his uncle and Grimluck and Grimvor just got along really well.
Right, yeah. Anyway, he was an acquisitioner. And it seems like Grommash is a little bit obsessed with the Draconic prophecies. So anyway, that was a great moment. I enjoyed that moment a lot because it kind of kicked off that there's a scene in Mask of Nyarlathotep that scene was based off of. Obviously, I made some modifications because, the character that that happens to is, you know, like I said, I split that character into two characters. Um,
Mhm.
because I didn't feel like it covered, enough for us,
Yeah.
Anyway, uh, and one of my favorite authors was talking about how sometimes having one character that's too complex or has too many points attached to them, maybe it's better to kind of split them and then use each
Yeah.
of them as more of an archetype. um, which anyway, that's what I did. So
Which is incredibly fun to play.
yeah, I think it worked out better for me.
Hmm.
um, Okay. So, I think this kind of led into this question leads into what we were just talking about. But how has Rose changed since, since we first met her? Obviously, we mentioned that she had a relatively good childhood, even if, it wasn't an affluent one. Um,
It wouldn't have. I mean, Cutter's Mouth was a small coastal town. They had their share of raiders. Rose fought off her first raid at 13, where they kind of, as a family, learned she's got some really good martial skills. Let's train her in them. Not
right,
just in the magic that she can manifest, but in the martial, which is what leads her down the paladin path,
right.
essentially.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's relatively good. They're comfortable. They're not wealthy, but they're comfortable. She's got her brothers and her brothers' partners and her nieces and nephews. And all of them kind of have that strong family bond.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't go without, essentially. But still, for whatever reason, Cutter's Mouth just feels stifling to her. So when she is asked to go to Fairhaven, she doesn't question it. She leaps at the chance because it's a way for her to kind of explore herself. And so when you meet her first in the campaign, she feels very much like a blank slate because she is. And it's the things that have happened to her as the campaign has progressed that have kind of shaped who she is now, where she is this young woman coming into her own and kind of coming into her own powers as she realizes that we're not normal people. We're not going to live normal lives.
Right.
And she's okay with that. She's kind of like, she's faced death and gone, well, whenever you're ready to take me, but it doesn't look like you're ready for me yet. Like, on multiple occasions. And she's going to continue that kind of, she's ready for it when it's ready for her kind of thing.
No, that does make
Or,
perfect sense actually, and it's kind of like, she has, like you said, she's had to face it. I'm not saying that she's not a doomsayer. She's not looking
oh,
she's not looking for death. But I definitely, feel like she's got almost that like samurai, sense
she's
of
made
like,
peace with her own mortality,
yeah,
essentially.
the sense of duty and honor and, um,
Mhm.
you know, anyway, yeah.
Which is going to be fun to play into because now she's also got a few other things to keep in mind with relationship to, like, her. When she rolls her last death save, she's okay with that. Or
So
fails her last death save.
I think that this also is a good opportunity for us to kind of talk about some of the changes that have happened to her.
Mhm.
Um, she's experiencing possibly some kind of madness that she hasn't
Yeah.
talked to anyone about at all.
She
Um,
talked to Lucian about it briefly, but that was kind of a side note.
okay.
But that's also going to start coming into play more because now things have happened and it might not be all in her head.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yes,
So,
something has recently happened that kind of, I mean, I'll just come out and say it. Andre has been visiting her. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Now, is this just like in the middle of the day, like you're walking around and he's there? I know I've seen
It's
it happen a couple points, but what's it look like?
for the way I typically, because a lot of this has been in background writing, I write it as like she sees him there and she's talking to him, but it's very much kind of like a telepathic communication, like what Zazie can do with her mind link, where she sees him, but she just thinks that she's having an hallucination. He's not actually there, she's just seeing him there and talking to him. Uh, but over the course of those like little moments of those visits from Andre, he's also been kind of teaching her some new magic tricks. Um, Kind of reflecting the fact that mechanically I took her down a dual class between paladin and now sorcerer. So to kind of put that from a roleplay perspective, that moment of mental break changed the path that she would have gone down on, and she's now taking the sorcerer's path, and he's the one teaching her magic
Yeah,
through that sorcery.
yeah, it's kind of an interesting thing, and we haven't really established like, oh, is this actually Andre?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it
Yeah,
seems now like maybe it actually is Andre,
yeah.
um, or it's a
Somebody who
coincidence, maybe. You know,
somebody who really knows who Andre was and is, because like even in those little background moments of like side stories and interludes that I've been posting, Andre is still very much a snarky kind of asshole. He's not going to give that up.
you
Like
know,
even if it's not actually Andre.
I'm just gonna throw this out here as just like playing devil's advocate to the idea, or being contrary. You know, when Andre visited Lucian, he had something really important to tell him. He had some information he was going to share with him, and they kind of butted heads because Andre was like, "Hey, I want you to be cordial," and Lucian was like, "Yeah, I'll be cordial. Just tell me what you have to say. You dipshit. Basically, I am being
But I mean,
cordial. I am being cordial. And he's like, "All right, let me try this again." And then Lucian just like, it's like just get on with it. And he's like, "Well, uh, that's really not cordial."
okay, I'm gonna point out that from like the party perspective, they're being visited by the ghost of a man who tried to kill them on multiple occasions. I don't blame Lucian a single bit for his reaction in that dream.
Oh, I don't either. I don't think that his reaction was out of line at all. I'm just saying that, like, the context of the situation was like, hey, these are my expectations. Oh, you're not meeting them, so maybe we need to talk later. Maybe
Yeah.
next time you'll be a little bit more amenable. But what if he visited Lucian, for the reasons why he told Lucian he was visiting him, and your situation is something else entirely, you know?
It's a possibility.
It
Like,
is.
it'd
It
be
is a
interesting to see.
possibility. Because,
Because,
why would he visit Lucian and not you? Um,
oh
is he,
yeah.
or maybe he just sees you all the time, so it's kind of like, you know,
I mean, that, and this doesn't come into a session, but it's very much a side story. I think I posted it at the end of the encounter where we've dealt with the Unmaker. Rose walks away from the party to check on what is now desecrated Silver Flame Temple. She's looking for survivors because there were a couple of NPCs that would have mattered to her in the holding cells down there. But she is also severely shaken at this point, probably almost as much, if not more than, she was shaken after Grimvor's death. And so she's kind of talking to what she assumes is Andre in that church. And she essentially kind of tells him to go the fuck away for a while. Like, leave me be. something isn't good here, and right now you're not helping. Leave me
Yeah.
the fuck alone.
Yeah. Spectre, leave
Uh,
me alone.
yeah, it's a very, very poignant moment um, for her. And it's much more of a solo moment for her, kind of her giving Lucian some space because, like, right now, like, she fucked up. She knows it. She doesn't want to stress Lucian out anymore. But if she stays there, she's going to break harder, and that's not going to be useful in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
So she does prioritize that kind of, how do I get myself into a space where I can talk to Lucian about this without him breaking or without me breaking? So she goes into the church, doesn't find what she's looking for, but has that moment to kind of collect herself and settle herself in a way that's going to be very beautiful moving forward, because she will have that opportunity to kind of not right the sins, but figure out how to work around them going forward. So, and what that actually looks like for her. And for Lucian too, because that's going to be an important part where their stories might start actually kind of overlapping in some fun ways. Looks like.
It does. It does look like that's a possibility for sure. Um, yeah. So, what's the next question? What's the next one? And we're gonna crowdsource here some questions as well. Oh, it looks like I'm gonna go over some things that they say. When is the musical episode? I'm not a musical fan. If they want to do that,
Absolutely not. You don't want to hear me sing.
yeah,
I am
no.
so out of practice.
I think we already had that one
Maybe a
actually.
Lucian episode.
Yeah, Steve
We had a
sang a
Lucian
song.
thing.
Yeah, he sang. He sang on one
I know, yeah,
episode.
he sang for one
That was pretty cool.
someplace.
Uh,
That's our musical episode.
yeah, it's gone. Maybe you can find it. I'm sure our chronicler could help you find it if you want to listen. When is there going to be a product placement episode with a special offer? I don't know. Maybe once the socials are in place a little bit better, we can do like a tag a friend type thing, and then give out, I don't know, the body pillow, the Rose or Lucian or both, body pillow, or something else. And then when are you going to start a Patreon? Once again, I think once the socials are in place, and we have a little, when we can provide some more value, you know, on that'll definitely be a move there. I'm already working on doing some one-off sessions and things like that, where
Building our audience.
yeah, building the audience up a little bit, but also like, giving maybe the one-offs could eventually be something where the patrons or even just regular listeners could be part of that. And also we have about a year left. Kind of trying to find who's going to be in the next campaign. So, because I know that everybody might not be coming back, so I'm trying to build up, a new roster, and maybe this time have 5, maybe even 6 players. We'll see. I feel like 4 is a really good number, and I wouldn't want to mess that up. But who knows? Who knows what the future will bring? All right. So, next question. Next question. All right. What is Rose's biggest regret?
Oh. As a character, not talking to Andre more when there was the opportunity.
Okay.
Like,
what would
she's
you have
always
asked
going to have just that reconnection. There's always going to be this kind of carryover guilt that, yeah, he probably was not a good person. She is facing that. But there's always going to be that what if question at the back of her mind is, what if I had just reached out during Weir a little more? what if I had spent some more time with him? Would he have changed anything? Would he have repented? Kind of question. The other regret for her is probably going to be if she could have done that fight with the Unmaker differently. Because there's a moment right before the Unmaker fight where I don't even remember what triggered it as a player. Rose certainly doesn't remember it as a character. But Lucian starts to undergo a curse, and Rose is there immediately fighting it off. And she uses her paladin abilities to remove that curse from Lucian.
She
didn't even...
it did start to manifest in, it was looking for its avatar. And Lucian was definitely one of its choices, and you kind of stopped that from happening, and that's when it passed to Erica, because she seemed to be the next, or maybe it was going at both of them, or who knows, maybe there was a myriad of choices within Zarashak. Regardless, and it could have been Lucian.
Regardless, could have been Lucian, but there's always going to be those two moments. What if I did something differently for Rose? Like, with Erica, she didn't even think about trying to remove the curse, if there was one, on Erica before their fight, or during their fight. It was very much, deal with the shard, then we'll deal with whatever's next. But in hindsight, in those moments of looking back, Rose is always going to have that, what could I have done better in that moment for her? Which, while she is not the smartest character, she is very academically adverse. That's one of her greatest strengths, is that, what could I do better? What can I learn from that? And pull it forward. Kind of thing. Like, if she's smart in one thing, it's going to be, like, but how do I apply hindsight to foresight? So, those are decent big regrets to deal with, too.
All right. Ooh, okay. Allies, relationships, rivalries. Anything that stands out in particular with some of the other players and or NPCs?
I'm definitely looking forward to exploring more of how Rose and Lucky handle their relationship, because it's very much not a traditional relationship, like, between them. And as a player, it's always fun to explore non-traditional relationships in media, because standard just doesn't fit Rose at all. Looking forward to, like, seeing how, going forward, that, like, now 2-month period between leaving for Sharn and eventually getting back to Fairhaven, how the NPCs she left in Fairhaven, Captain Block being one of them, and a couple of others, how she relates to them in regards to her work as a gatekeeper and maybe even part of the actual Silver Flame organization going forward. Because she'd been working kind of alongside them during that 9-month hiatus. But now she gets to go back as an actual, like, she's addressing her powers sort of thing within both. And learning how to deal with that. It's going to be fun to see how the NPCs react to that. As far as other player characters, I mean, we know Zazie and Rose are really close. They're practically sisters at this point. They're best friends. There's also, she and Lucian have kind of opened up to each other far more in the past month than they did in the entire campaign previously, in game time. So it's going to be fun to explore that going forward.
Yeah,
and how because there are a lot of parallels we're discovering between Lucian and Rose.
That's exactly what I was about to say. That is one thing that's really kind of that I've noticed with him, is that I mean, obviously you guys are very different, but there's just been a couple of things like over time that have just been like, oh wow, That's
Unplanned parallels have been kind of hilarious
yeah,
to
it's been good.
like there. There's very much a Clark Kent Bruce Wayne dynamic between the two of them, and I love it. I'm
You of course
looking
being
forward to
Clark
seeing how that.
Kent.
Yeah, who else?
Yeah.
So it's very much going to be fun to see that play out in the future. Um, Also looking forward to seeing how she and Kovanen work together. The closest they've ever been was that month in the Dreamlands, and that was a very stressful time for them both because the goal was survival in an unknown,
Yeah.
very hostile environment,
Yeah.
technically behind enemy lines at that point. There wasn't much for that emotional connection.
Yeah, no, and there's just kind of obviously the two of you, um, I would say have the least in common, as
Yeah.
characters. Um, you had like I wouldn't say a traditional childhood, but a semi-traditional, the most traditional childhood out of everyone in the party.
Yeah.
You know,
Like,
maybe it wasn't a white picket fence, but you definitely grew up, very much like the Depression era.
mhm.
Childhood. Your dad was a
Yeah.
lumberjack. You guys made do with what you had, and lived off the land, and blah blah blah. You get it.
Yeah.
Where it's Kovanen didn't even have a childhood that he remembers well, or it hasn't even begun to come back to him until he existed here. And even then, it's kind of like, well, like, what? Who the hell is this guy? Did he even exist before? Anyway, I just feel like
Mhm.
there's some interesting differences that kind of keep you guys from really forming a close bond. But in its own
Mhm.
way, I think it adds to the
It
game.
does.
You know?
Because it's very realistic dynamics, and I like that. Um, I don't expect them to be like super buddy buddy even at the end of the campaign, and it's going to be fun because where Zazie and Rose do have a really good interpersonal bond because they've worked together, they fought together, they spent that time together. There's also the dynamic of the relationship between Zazie and Kovanen. And Zazie is literally the biggest thing they have in common, despite the difference in their relationship dynamics.
Right.
So it's going to be fun to see how that plays out interpersonally. Like,
Y-
Rose is very much not going to third wheel, but is that going to be a good thing or a bad thing?
Right.
Giving
Right.
Zazie that space to explore this new relationship.
Yeah, that'll definitely be an interesting phenomenon. So then, of course, we had there was also, your mentor who is now gone,
Yeah,
and
yeah, of
then
course. That's
Lucky.
if, yeah, yeah, looking forward to seeing Lucky, seeing how that plays out. Like, I very much enjoy their dynamic because Rose's dynamic with Lucky is very much she definitely finds him attractive. That is very obvious. But while she loves him in her own ways, she's not sure if it's going to be that kind of love that she sees in her parents, her oldest brother with his wife. So she's okay with that. But she's also very much aware, like, this may not be a permanent thing. It's
Right.
fun while it lasts. And
Right.
if it does become permanent, I'm going to be happy. But if it doesn't, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and it
And
may
that,
not even be that it's
yeah.
it may not even be that it's fun. It might just be that it's right now. You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's definitely an interesting situation for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, then there's Block, which is kind of
Yeah. But like, the way we haven't explored this much behind the scenes, but very much the way I, as the player, see her relationship to Block specifically is very much another mentor, almost kind of uncle figure, but in that sort of professional way, like that old hand veteran who takes that new kid under his wing. That's the relationship Black and Rose have when she's working with the Paladins of the Silver Flame, because they're the ones that she enlisted to help with the wards after putting down the sleeper. Yeah, she had the rest of the gatekeepers to help too, but their numbers are very much diminished. Whereas the Silver Flame, who had just moved in to Fairhaven, are fresh and new and bring a very different power dynamic into the defense of the wards and the gate underneath the city. And this is something that I'd love to work more towards as a player with Rose, is showing how she brings all these disparate communities she is a part of, just sometimes by pure accident, and how she interacts with them in kind of not just how she reacts to them, but how they've changed because she exists, simply because she exists in their space,
Right. I mean, and
and how
kind
they
of
have to relate to each other around
binding them
her.
together in a way, kind of
Yeah,
how she does. You know, she's a
yeah,
binder. You know.
she is. And there's something very interesting um, behind that. I don't know if you knew this. Thrashk, which is technically her house, if she had any house loyalties at all, um, is also Orcish for United.
Oh, that's
It's
pretty
something
cool.
she definitely, yeah, that's definitely something she's taken note of. She's not sure what to make of it, but she's definitely like, huh, about it.
Well, yeah. I mean, and
It's true.
that's definitely something too. In like your dream, you know, you had, and it was about the
Mhm.
houses and how they at one time were united, and
Yeah,
you know, now they're basically
yeah,
fighting
a
a
lot of
friggin' shadow wars
yeah.
against each other.
Shadow Wars that somehow resulted in them taking over as a Council of 12 to rule the entirety of Kharbran together,
They're not
which is,
ruling it. They're just guiding the decision making process.
I think that's effectively ruling it.
So,
You're asking a standard soldier to differentiate between what's the difference between an empire or an emperor and a king.
right. Well, no, more like an emperor and a senate.
There,
But yeah. So
the nuance goes over her head. She just knows like uh something's weird.
yeah, yeah. It is weird, and they have already had some issues with the Silver Flame, who has been basically set up as the to adjudicate this new government movement that's going on. That I mean, I feel like they're trying to unite Galifar. You know,
Hmm.
all of Corvair again, the way that it was
Yeah,
before the uh, the last war, before King Galifar died, and
yeah.
and that was in Seer actually. You know, the Metrol was the capital of basically. Um,
Seer before Seer underwent a rather kind of horrific transformation.
yeah, I mean, but that at one point
Timelines.
was the capital of all of Corvair. You know, so
Yeah.
um, it's kind of an interesting thing. Um, will you all be switching game engines at some point? Um, do you mean to like Foundry or something like that, Ninja?
More like switching away from 5e to something like Pathfinder or
Oh
Savage Worlds.
no,
The
definitely
actual
not.
engine behind.
Yeah, no.
We're
I
probably not switching, at least for this campaign. I might be able to convince you to try a different system at some point,
I
though.
mean, I used to play a bunch of different systems, and after playing a ton of them, my favorite system for a while was D20 Modern, um, and that was like, the I guess you could call it the progenitor for 5e. And I was like, man, this is so simple and fun. And I was really disappointed that it didn't get developed beyond that point. Um, and still am. I really wish that they would kind of tap into that and make more with it. But there must not have been enough of a following for them to really do more with it. But other systems are fine. I was a huge fan of the Warhammer Fantasy roleplay system. Rogue Trader is really great. Um,
Mhm.
you know, uh, like I said, I played a bunch, but I just 5e is just such an elegant system, um, and it lends itself really well to the way that I like to DM. I wish there were more. I wish there were more settings based upon its mechanics. So that's a good question, but I think for the time being, if I did anything, it would probably be Call of Cthulhu, which would be really interesting to run in Eberron.
That is.
So,
I
okay.
like the Call of Cthulhu system, especially if you do Call of Cthulhu.
I'm a huge fan of it. It's just, not a lot of people were really that into it. Let's see, ultimate goals. How far are we in here? We have
You
okay.
just
We've
covered.
got like 15 minutes left, so probably two more questions. Um,
Mhm.
okay. Can you tease any upcoming plot twists or developments for your character in the next campaign or next campaign arc? I guess
Oh,
I should say.
ooh, I don't know if I have a really good teaser. I mean, there's the jokey teaser of you get to see her be a mother for a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, that's not really a twist though. We've seen that coming for a while.
it's not. Uh, Much to
um,
some players' chagrin, which I apologize only so much for.
I think I can step in on this one, and I think this goes for everyone. The party is what, like, is level 12 now, right? Um,
13.
13. I don't think we actually
We've
progressed
been
to that.
13.
What's that?
We, we've been 13.
Yeah.
We
So yeah, that progression, was debated in the chats, but
yeah.
wherever it actually may be. But yeah, we'll say 13. Um, you guys are moving into tier 4, you know. Um, you're not there yet, but you're about to be in tier 4 gameplay. And for me, I think something that's really important is to kind of ground your characters in a way that makes it feel organic, that you guys are these basically becoming these, heroes. And to some extent, eventually, like demigods. Once you get beyond level 15, you're so far beyond the normal, the commoner, that as to be almost divine, you know. Um, and it's
Yeah.
the twists, I think, will be how those progressions manifest.
Yeah.
So take that as
I mean, we're already seeing a little bit of it in Rose with
mhm. Yeah,
the way her mark is starting to do its own thing, essentially.
yeah. It's aberrant, but it doesn't follow the
Mm,
aberrant patterns, and that's something unique. So,
yeah.
um,
Rose hasn't thought about that much. She's just kind of like, that's a thing. I'll deal with that later. For right
mm-hmm,
now,
mm-hmm.
I have other things. Is very much her attitude on that part. Like that's her the also that like -1 intelligence is coming into play because she probably should be paying more attention to the fact that her mark is doing things it shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think most of the time she's just like kind of like, caught up in the moment, and then by the time it comes time to think about it again, it's just her new normal, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and Yeah. So if you could give if your character could give a piece of advice to a new adventurer, let's say perhaps we've been interviewing some people for a while trying to find that fifth player, and we may have found a good candidate. It seems like everybody seems to be on board with this person. Obviously we need to do a little bit more intel before we bring somebody into, something that's been going on for this whole point. But what kind of advice would Rose give that person's character?
Ah, this is hilarious for as often as it happens specifically to her. Don't split the party. Stick with the group.
Yeah.
Like, I say that in seriousness. It's the standard for a reason. And yet, Rose, despite knowing this, will often find herself backed into a corner facing three other guys, separated from the rest of her party, going, like, really? Really? Of course they're going to separate me. Bastards.
Yeah, there's been
She is so snarky in her internal monologue.
more than one occasion.
Like, oh, let's see, going into possibly dangerous territory on her own without thinking about it. It's like, oh yeah, I'm just going to go talk to this guy who has information, and oh, he might actually be going crazy because I'm not the only one who is feeling that murder shit.
Yeah.
Her walking alone into the library, and Zarish, yeah, she had Lucky with her, but as good as Lucky is as backup, it's not the party.
Yeah, I mean,
It's like,
running. Oh shoot, I'm sorry. Running situations that require investigation usually work better when you split up the party, and that's kind of like the basically the Call of Cthulhu stuff I try to tie into it. And whenever that happens, you guys are split up, and then as long as everybody is kind of circumspect, at least a little bit, it doesn't go bad. But the moment people start kind of standing out too much is when those events begin to unravel.
Telling a 6'4" brick house of a woman who has green skin and a glowing gold to not stand out. Really, really.
Yeah, we gotta get the art with the the full blown glowing skin there, or at least the sigils, markings, whatever we want to call them. And the last two that we gave everybody were who is Rose's favorite NPC, and who is Rose's least favorite NPC.
You know what? Lucky is too easy of a choice for the favorite NPC.
Yeah, so let's go with Mouse. Who's Mouse's favorite NPC?
My favorite NPC as Mouse is Felt's a good standout. I kind of have a strange fondness for Al, as much as we tend to give him shit. He's definitely fun. And then the Inquisitor. Rebecca also stands out. I have 4. But I think out of all of them, I'm very, very curious about the Inquisitor specifically, like as a player.
Yeah, there's something's going on there. I've kind of teased out a little bit that something happened between him and Felt, where Felt like saved his ass in some situation, and has basically been avoiding him since. And you don't really know why. It seems like a strange thing to do, where it's like somebody owes you a favor, and then you kind of hold them at arm's length. What kind of favor would that be?
Yeah.
I don't. Who is your most hated NPC, as Rose or as Mouse, as a person?
This is not a negative thing, but Veer. Veer is a slimy bastard of a person, and this is both as a player and as a character. Like, Meadow ranks up in Rose's like people to watch out for simply because there is that history she and Andre had. But Veer, is very much the number one. This person's gonna die, even if that means that I'm holding his arms behind his back while Zazie rearranges his internal organs and then puts them on the ground, kind of situation. Veer is very much that number one.
Yeah, I think that
Looking forward to that.
I think that's mostly everyone's. I know that I mean Zazie obviously has the greatest reason to hate them, and Kovanen probably in the second. Or
Yeah.
maybe actually I don't even know if Kovanen has a reason to hate them other than what they did to Zazie. Uh,
Uh,
you know, I mean,
some questions.
it's you know, it's a family thing. Uh, so, but yeah,
Oh my god.
cool.
Understatement.
Yeah, so
Yeah, no, it's
I'm going on vacation tomorrow. I guess I'm going to be
have
missing
fun.
next Monday, so me and Lucien are going to have to reschedule because I'm definitely not going to be able to do that while I'm down there. So hopefully we can hit that up when I'm back next week.
Yeah.
But you know, I don't think I don't think I have anything else that I need to get into. Um, but anybody in the audience? Rose? Anybody?
Uh, I don't think I have. I do have one question as a player
Sure.
to the GM. What
Yeah.
is your favorite Rose moment?
I mean,
Oh,
I really like the moment when you guys were in the chamber and they were, you know, trying to sacrifice you to baby Cthulhu. And when you first manifested the mark, that was a
mhm.
that was a pretty good one for me. I really like that. Um, I'm trying to think if there
I,
was I'm trying to think if there was something else that was like maybe not like that stands out as much as that. But I mean that moment was really good for me. Like I feel like Rose has kind of like this constant slow burn where there's always something happening, you know, and it kind of like manifests in moments like that. The Grimvor thing, you know, is
yeah.
really like stressful, you know. Um,
I mean, because it was that whole week and a half essentially was she'd just gone from being essentially on one of the best vacations she's ever had, even if it was only like 2, 3 days, to what the fuck in some what the fuck sort of ways. Not to stress that point. Um,
no, agreed.
and then it went, yeah, and then it went from what the fuck to what the fucking fuck, because then they had to deal with
What the fucking
Mistress.
fuck?
Yeah, because there was no, she didn't have a moment to breathe between Grimvor's murder and Zarashak,
Right,
essentially.
right.
Like even
I think
Deepwood
you know.
City
Okay,
wasn't breathing hard.
when we met Lucky's wife, that was a really
Actually,
fun. That was a real
that
fun
was a fun
moment for
moment.
me. The way that you handled that and that whole awkwardness of that situation, and even the
It
party,
was
everybody
so
was kind of
fun.
like, "Oh shit, this is fucking weird."
I was like,
You okay with this?
"What?
And
Excellent!" Like, Rose is just like, ah, like
never
he
mentioned
said,
that before.
he
Um,
said he had an excitement. Didn't realize this is what he meant.
right, right. Uh,
I have to wait another week.
Mostly X,
You
and
get your
then
butt in here. How about that?
what's that?
Sorry, talking to Lucian.
Yeah, and then it turns out that the ring that he gave to Zazie had been their wedding ring.
I know that's not weird. I'm like,
um,
oh, and
which was
like,
essentially like allowed her to like split the damage with him, you know, mechanically. Which never really
yeah,
turned into anything. I don't know. I mean, you guys are definitely building up some allies, and
mhm.
you know, so
And I mean, I'm really, really hoping as a player, uh, I kind of want more Rose and Ashley moments where they have to deal with the fact that they
Is Ashley
exist
alive?
together.
Have we even figured it out?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm hoping she is. I'm hoping that Lucky's little mark of finding powers find her alive and well,
And then he comes
even if
back, you know, and you guys are united, all three of you.
that's going to be interesting to shape that dynamic.
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to seeing how that plays out.
Yeah.
Like, how
Um,
do they handle that? I have my ideas and like player wants, but that does require a lot of other input from the DM. So hopefully you can play nice.
whatever. What-
Whatever.
I'm sure
Uh,
it'll be great. But okay. I think that wraps it up then. Yeah, that was good. That was good, and I'm looking forward to us actually playing again. But this was definitely a nice break, and it allows me. You know,
mhm.
it's funny because everybody, you know, you guys all went and mentioned slightly different things, and it's nice. It brings back memories of things that have happened, and kind of helps me reset everything. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's definitely been fun. I am definitely looking forward to figuring out a few things behind the scenes and then like getting to that first session of year three. Can't wait to show off the cover art templates that I'm designing behind the scenes. So
yeah, yep.
I need to put sponsored by Pixabay somewhere, by
I
the
don't even know
way.
what Pixabay is. Is it like something that makes like weird, cute faces?
No, Pixabay is you're thinking of Picro. Pixabay is where I get all of my stock art because it has one of the best free use licenses and they have saved my ass so many times for so many different projects.
Nice. Well,
So
yeah, I think we're gonna close it up. I'd like to invite the players into the channel to chat for a minute, um, and